The rest of lunch was quite awkward. There was something about Dai that bugged the Hokage and his wife, as well as Motoshi and Katsuko, but none of them could put their finger on it. Both parties had different reasons for it though. While Minato and Kushina felt annoyed at the strange boy, Katsuka and Motoshi couldn't shake the feeling that he seemed so familiar to them. They kept on glancing at him as if looking at him more would either get him to submit to their desire that he entered the ninja program, or that it would suddenly become obvious who he was. Thankfully though, it wasn't too long before the family got their food, ate, and left. Naruto wasn't the only person that had noticed the odd glances that he had been given, and Shizune had begun to get suspicious of the family too. "Is it just me, or do they seem to hate you already?" she asked, tilting her head and furrowing her brow in confusion. It didn't make sense that they would hate him when he had done absolutely nothing to anger them. "It's not just you. Both Kurama and I noticed it, and he's trying to figure out something now," he explained, shaking his head a bit. "It doesn't make sense. They're treating me just like they were when I was Naruto. Well, now they actually seem to want me on their side though. But Kurama felt like they were messing up his thought process, almost like they were touching him. But he's made out of chakra, and surely the Hokage would have said something if he noticed the chakra signature or had been tampering with it." "She's right, Naruto. Whatever is going on, they're not doing it consciously. Maybe because they're your parents, but they seem to be sensing tiny fragments of my chakra. But that should mean Motoshi and Katsuko would be doing the same if the link was family-based." Naruto shook his head and explained what Kurama had told them to Shizune. "We need to tell Tsunade about. At the moment, I think the only thing we can do is wait and continue training. She won't get off work until later tonight anyways. How about we go back home and start training?" Naruto nodded and smiled. "Yeah, let's," he agreed, walking so they could pay before heading back to Shizune's house. As planned, he left 5 clones with her to learn from Shizune, another 5 to either study or do any of the practical experiments, such as being injected with poisons and stuff from the clones that were learning. Naruto himself headed to the training ground, making 10 clones to practice jutsu and other chakra-related exercises. Meanwhile, the original did strength training and running, or did mental and strategy training with Kurama. By sunset, he had learned effectively, and one of his clones back home released itself to send Naruto information that it was time for dinner. One by one, the clones dissipated, so the information didn't overload him, and they were all gone by the time he arrived home. He was exhausted. His body was still physically young after all, but Shizune had prepared a balanced meal and sent him to bath after he ate. He was sent to bed afterwards, which he wasn't complaining about. It was important that he rested well so that he had enough energy for the next day. They were doing everything they could to make sure that he developed well. The next day they did a similar thing in terms of training. It was split into 2 sessions, one after breakfast and one after lunch. Lunchtime was where they visited Tsunade and explaining their problems with Minato, Kushina, Katsuko, and Motoshi. Tsunade didn't have much to input about the situation since it was rather complicated, but she said she would think on it and get back to him if she came up with anything. It was good that they spent time talking, however, since it allowed Naruto to have time for a break, which was something he needed so he didn't overwork himself. There was no need to be training 24/7, as it would only be reducing hours he trained if he had to spend a day or 2 recovering from overworking himself. As the next 2 months went by, the training was going well. Of course, Minato had been unsuccessfully in convincing Naruto to join the academy, and it was too late to join now as it was a month into the curriculum. Some of the top clans had enrolled their children into the course, but only a few had been advanced enough to get into the highest ability class that had older people. Neji, Motoshi, Katsuko were the only ones to have gotten in, while Sasuke was in the second top class along with Hinata. The other clans had decided to wait to enroll their children, as they did not want to become full-fledged genin so soon. They would wait a few years until they were old enough to be able to perform well and make better decisions. Once Sakura Haruno had enrolled to be in the course, but had failed to even get into the lowest ninja class and instead was sent to a civilian class. Even without the academy, Naruto was still better than most of the students in the top classes. He could now make up to 35 shadow clones, and he used them effectively to train and study. Every Saturday morning, Tsunade would test him on what Shizune had taught him that week, and each week he would pass with a high mark. Afterwards, he would take a break and have some fun, which would usually consist of playing a game of shogi or something else with Shizune or Tsunade, or reading a book of his own choice. Sometimes he would spend time cooking dinner or lunch as well, which wasn't his favorite activity, but he did find it calming. Right now it was a Saturday afternoon, and he was out on a walk into the village. He didn't go out very often aside from training, going to the library or going home, and right now he was heading to the library to return a book on different types of plants. He had wanted to find out what some of the plants in the trading ground he went to were, and it had been quite useful. He had just been walking to get to the counter where he would return the book when he was spotted by Shika Nara, who had seen him around the village. He wasn't dumb, and he had known who Naruto was before he had become Dai. Shikaku had taken a while to figure out the connection, having had not much interactions with him before the change, but when he did, it seemed so obvious. He remembered the 9 toes before its sealing, and the hair and eye color was the same, and though his appearance had changed, he still had the same face shape. The head of the Nara clan had never gotten the chance to talk to him until now, though, as the boy was either with Shizune or Tsunade, or he himself had a place to be. Now that none of those hindrances were present, he was free to talk to him. "Uzumaki Naruto," he began, his voice quiet enough that only Naruto could hear. "I believe it's time we had a talk. I am Shikaku, the head of the Nara clan." Naruto froze, his eyes widening as he looked up at him, unsure what he should do. "I have to return my book, sir," he said, trying to buy a little more time to talk with Kurama. "Then return it, and we can go talk back at my clan compound. It's as simple as that." "Just do as he says, Naruto. He's never held anything against you before, and I can't sense any hatred," Kurama assured him. Before telling him to return his book, Naruto did so, before turning to Shikaku and following him. The walk was silent as Naruto talked more with the fox to discuss how much information they should get him. His breath hitched as they got there, and he was led inside a room, where they sat down. "So, where to start? How about the obvious thing, the appearance? You can trust me, kid." Shikaku said, his dark eyes gazing over Naruto. Normally it would be intimidating, but Naruto couldn't seem to feel scared of the man. "Well, it's pretty simple really," Naruto began, clearly hesitant to speak. Even though he felt like he could trust him, he was a clan leader after all. He couldn't help but be paranoid that the information he disclosed would be given to the Hokage. He really didn't want that to happen, since Minato seems to hate him as it was. He doubted the hatred was based off knowing who he was, since he seemed to have completely forgotten his previous identity, but it still seemed likely that Minato would try to manipulate him even more if he knew he was a tailed beast container. Shikaku sighed and shook his head. "Look, kid, I'm not stupid. Whatever's going on, the Hokage doesn't seem to know and care. I don't remember the last time I saw you with him or Kushina. I may have sworn loyalty to the village, but I won't follow a leader who abandons his family. I might be lazy and unmotivated, but my wife and my son and my friends are important to me. I would give my life for them. You can trust me," he told them, his voice firm enough to get his point clearly across, but gentle enough to hold some amount of care. "As you might know, I'm the container of the nine-tailed fox. 6 months ago, I met him after exhausting my chakra. He is not the beast you know. He was being controlled by a Sharingan user. He changed me to make my life better, and the appearance is a result of that," he admitted, sighing softly as he looked away. Shikaku sighed and shook his head. "I'm not gonna hate someone because of what they hold. I prefer to judge people with my own eyes and make my own decisions. You haven't done anything wrong, and if the Kyuubi is as you say, then I respect that. You're more than welcome in my clan, Naruto. I've been training with Shizune and Tsunade, whom I live with at the moment. I'm afraid I cannot tell you my abilities, but I will tell you I'm strong for my age. I do not wish to be joining the academy at such a young age, both because I will not be at my full potential and also because the ninja world is no place for a 5-year-old. Even with the new curriculum, I do not believe that I will be fully prepared. Besides, I can get more of my own training done if I wait a few years. That's a smart decision. I kept my son from the academy for similar reasons. He's strong for his age, smart too, and I have no doubts that he would be able to do well if he wished. My wife and I would want to see him out on a high mission My wife and I would not want to see him out on high mission so soon though. We would regret it greatly if something had happened to him because of youth or inexperience. Perhaps you and him may be in the same class, he said, giving him a half smirk. Or perhaps even the same team. Who knows? Now, we're done with the business. I didn't want to keep you here forever, just talking. That's what my wife does, the wonderful, troublesome woman. Have you ever heard of or played shogi, Naruto? Naruto nodded, letting out a quiet, relieved sigh when he heard that they were over. While Shikaku wasn't the highest trained interrogator, he was still smart and analytic, and Naruto wasn't quite at a level that matched him. Give him a few years and he would be better, but he was only 5, and even time with Kurama couldn't give him the skills that he had at this current moment. Now, while I would usually put you against my Shikamaru, I feel like you're up for a bit more of a challenge than that. Give me everything you got, kid. Shikaku got up, exiting and soon returning to the shogi board. Soon returning with a shogi board. The game soon begun, and Naruto was quite good at it, though his ability had yet to pass Shikaku. He didn't want to use Kurama since he wouldn't always be able to have the fox help him. All on his own and independent, he did better than Shikamaru. But wasn't quite as advanced as Shikaku, about halfway in between their abilities. He lost, but he put up a good battle against them. Thank you for playing with me. You were quite impressive in your strategies. I wouldn't have thought to make the moves that you did, but I believe you've helped me to learn some new ways of playing. Naruto gave him a grateful smile. It was nice to have a turn playing against someone with high capabilities such as Kurama that wasn't Kurama. Shogi was never Tsunade or Shizune's strong suit, after all. Shikaku grunted a bit in approval and nodded, saying, "You did well, Uzumaki Naruto." Just like the other time he used his name, he left off the Namikaze. While that name could be forgotten, the Uzumaki bloodline was still within him, and it was a proud bloodline to come from, even if Kushina had tainted it with her neglect of Naruto. Shikaku knew that the boy was more than worthy of inheriting that name if he so pleased. Though if he chose against it because of his siblings becoming clan heirs, that was his choice and an understandable one, as he was the rightful heir to the Uzumaki clan head. I believe I have kept you too long, however. But if you ever need anyone to be by your side, whether it be for training, a hot meal one night, or a simple game of shogi, you're more than welcome in our clan. Now, Ichigo Dai, I bid you a good night. Shikaku gave him a half smile, walking him outside of the compound. Thank you. Really, Nara. You're too kind, but perhaps I may take you up on that offer. With that, Naruto left, walking as the sun was just beginning to set. As Shikaku returned, his son walked over, looking up at him. Who was the Oda-san? He asked. He didn't look much older than me, younger even. His name is Ichigo Dai, and if you ever see him around, don't be afraid to talk to him, especially if you end up in the academy. He's a respectable boy, quite good at shogi, but he doesn't have many friends. I think you would like him. Naruto arrived home just in time to be having dinner. He himself hadn't realized he'd spent playing shogi with Shikaku. He himself hadn't realized how long he's been playing shogi with Shikaku. He was glad to return back home though and enjoy dinner and a bath before going to get some sleep. Shizune had been quite interested to hear about his interactions with Shikaku, and made a note to talk to him at some point. She didn't think Naruto realized the importance of what had been said regarding being welcome in their clan, which was to be expected since they hadn't gotten to do that part in terms of clans. They were looking at other things such as more broad information on other villages. Naruto felt that it would be more important to learn about other places other than home, since he would learn about home a lot in the academy. Still, with his steady improvements going on with his training and learning, and his respectful and kind personality, Shizune had no doubt that he would become a strong, great ninja. More people would come to see it in time, and he would gain a great support as he improved. 2 years and a few months had passed since Naruto had met Shikaku, and things were definitely looking up. He was now 8, having had his birthday not long ago, and it seemed as if the whole village had forgotten about who he used to be. Everyone other than Shikaku, Shizune, and Tsunade at least. On his birthday, there was no hunts to find and kill the demon fox child, and nobody ever brought up his existence. To the villagers, he was just Ichigo Dai, or Fruit Boy as some of them like to call him. The ones that he'd been more interactions with at least, such as the librarian and the weapon shop owner. Though the most confusing thing was the fact that Minato and Kushina, he basically didn't exist. They'd forgotten about him, and if they did realize he was there, they treated him like garbage, like they had when he was Naruto. After consulting with Kurama, Shikaku, Tsunade, and Shizune, they'd come to one main conclusion. One that had flaws in it though. Their only explanation was that they knew who he was and hated him because of his identity as the fox container, but they didn't explain why they seemed to forget about him, or why Kurama felt bothered when they were around. It was potential that it had something to do with Kushina's chakra chains reacting to the Kyuubi's chakra, but it happened when Minato was around too. It was faint, so it was hard to sense, but Kurama found it extremely hard to deal with. Their children were just as troublesome, having already become Tokubetsu Chunin and started on their mission, going on various C ranks and gaining the attention of the villagers. They were strong, no doubt about it, and were at least almost equal to Naruto when it came to just flat out taijutsu and fighting. Naruto Katongan and other various improvements from Kurama made him stronger, as did the Kyuubi's chakra, but he felt like that was cheating and didn't want to use either of those things unless he really needed to. The sight was one of the most powerful weapons that a ninja could have, after all. The Dojutsu was now in its second stage, which had to be activated, as the first stage was a passive effect that didn't require chakra. It allowed him superior control over fire, boosting his affinity and allowing him to control other people's fire attacks, either diverting or extinguishing them. It wasn't strong enough to defeat a Jonin's fire jutsu, but a Chunin or Genin he could control. It also allowed him to see heat signatures if he added or removed more chakra from his eyes, but that was less useful for him at the moment, as he wasn't going on missions that required stealth. In the future, however, it would be extremely beneficial, as he would be able to locate people much easier and distinguish them from other things in the environment. Finally, it boosted his ability to detect genjutsu and illusions. Also improved were his physical capabilities and jutsu. He was easily able to make 500 shadow clones with plenty of chakra to spare, but he only tended to stick between 50 and 100 when training, as so not to overload his body and mind with information. When he was older, he would be more capable of handling the strain, but they were still cautious of his health, as they didn't want any rash decisions now to impact on his future. He knew a range of both fire and wind jutsu that could be used for numerous different situations, some that were unknown to the world that Kurama had observed from battles between ninjas over the years, and was working on beginning to create a few of his own new original jutsu. His chakra control was kept up to par. He always worked on keeping it at a steady level, since it meant he was able to perform better and conserve more chakra when it came to using higher power jutsu or learning new skills. Naruto's physical strength was good too. He trained using seals that did a similar job to weights, but were worn all the time and weren't bulky or anything. This increased his speed and his strength. He hadn't made the seals himself, but borrowed them from the Hokage. He borrowed a lot of things from the Hokage actually. It was a good test of his skills. That one time when he borrowed the scroll of sealing, well, he needed Kurama to look at the information for him and remember it so he could learn it later. But it would be helpful for him as he got older and needed more powerful jutsu in his arsenal. There was also his knowledge and the things that he'd learned from Shizune and Tsunade. He'd learned various skills, some that were essential for a ninja to learn how to do, and others that he wanted to learn to increase his skill sets. These were things such as gathering food and hunting in the wild, both near Konoha but within other areas of the world as well. His ability with poisons and herbal medicine had increased as well, and he was currently working on his ability to apply those things to humans. The poisons would either be through darts, gas, or using ninja scalpels, and medicines were mainly through human consumption where it was most effective. Kunai and shuriken throwing was good, and he had good accuracy as well, but he had a lot to advance in more creative ways using them. He had well since covered the contents of the academy and what he needed to know to become a chunin, but he had yet to apply for both of those tests because a different opportunity had presented itself. Just a few weeks ago, Shikaku had been talking with him with some of the former Anbu members who had informed him that the Hokage was trying to get them back into his squad. He needed more members, but many of the people rising through the ranks were more content with becoming a chunin or jonin and gathering more fame for themselves, or they didn't have the skill set required. They wanted to be remembered in history as proud members of the Lee village, and to them, stealth work wasn't going to achieve their own personal dreams. That led to the point that they were at now, in a room with Shizune, Tsunade, Shikaku, and Naruto discussing the future. Look, the Hokage needs more Anbu members, and I'm willing to bet he'd take on anyone. I'm not saying that you have to, but I think Naruto should try out and take the test under an alias, or at least using a mask. It would be a chance to improve your skills and to get closer to the Hokage and figure out just what's going on. Shikaku presented his idea to the group, glancing towards the others to see what their opinions were. I don't know, Nara. He's only young. He isn't 8 years old, too early to be joining a squad as elite as the Anbu? Blah blah, Shizune. If they're allowing 8-year-olds to be trying out for the Chunin exams where many people die, well, I think it's fine for our Naruto to try out to be an Anbu. You know he's strong enough, and it'll only help him grow and improve. If you really want it, well, he can apply for the academy as well. Tsunade looked towards the youngest, giving him a smile and patting him on the back. You can do whatever you want, kid. You may not be my level just yet, but you've certainly earned my respect. Naruto looked up at them, thinking through some things. I'm still waiting on the recommended 10 years of age to become an academy student. That would be too much to do on top of being an Anbu, but I'll take the test at least. This opportunity could be a good one for me, and who knows when I'll get another one. And then when it's time for me to be in the academy, well, we'll see when we get there. But my first step is to go to this test. When is it? Shikaku smirked, and so did Tsunade, while Shizune looked worried. It's only in weeks' time. I'll go set things up with the Hokage for you. Then Naruto, I have some people I would like you to meet. The Nara clan head got up, thanking the women present for the tea and bidding them goodbye to get things started. He had known it was a good idea to speak with Naruto 2 years ago, and even if the Namikaze Uzumaki family didn't see his potential, he definitely did. Like, subscribe, comment Q. I'll see you on the next part. Roll the outro.